And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Breakdown, brand new series on my channel, which will be on a somewhat regular upload schedule. We're going to say once a week, maybe, or if there's a big enough a topic to cover. So, with this new series, I have a guest with me tonight, and most likely will be a frequent guest, Mr. Samuel Tolbert from the Inner Circle of Games Network. You can introduce yourself, sir.
Hey everybody, I feel like if you're watching this, you know who I am, either with my work on the Inner Circle podcast, the website, or with the Gaming Perspective podcast every Saturday evening. But it's good to be here. It's premiering a new series. This is awesome. I really like your pitch to me. When you came to me about this, I was kind of like, initially I was like, another series, hold on. But then you explained what we were doing and how we'd be doing it and the rapid fire pace of everything. I was like, okay. This is cool. I like this. This is a neat way of hopping and on something, just getting on the issue while it's still there, while it's important, instead of letting it linger for too long before we talk about it.
Yeah, basically the whole essence of this series is like there's some topics that are really great that you could do a whole podcast episode on, but doesn't necessarily fit in our time constraints. So this is an opportunity to expand on specific topics and everything else. And we're going to kick it off with the X018 announcement. Now, there's a lot of surprise when this was announced because it's been a while since there was an XO event. Well, not necessarily an XO event. They've done tons of fan fests and things similar, but this specific brand has been gone for a while. So I'll give a brief summary of how it came back into being. So on Inside Xbox, Phil Spencer guested and confirmed that XO is coming back. This year's event is called X018. It'll air live on November 10th, 2018. Phil Spencer also stated the event would include third-party and first-party announcements. He cited fan feedback as a key reason to the event was returning. XO was a big fan event in years past. However, it's been several years since it was last held. So yeah, this is going to be a large Xbox-based event in Mexico City. It's going to be covered on Mixer from November 10th and 11th, and it's going to kick off with Inside Xbox from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So that's Central Time on the Saturday. So there's no confirmation if there's going to be a conference outside of Inside Xbox, but that's kind of the going idea that that's going on right now. So Sam is going to give us a little brief history of what kind of announcements happened at previous XO events. So Sam, you can take us away on this.
Okay, so really quickly here. People don't seem to understand, and to be fair, I was one of them until very recently, so that's fine. I'm talking to myself here. It's self-deprecation as well. That until maybe 2008, 2009, it wasn't E3 that was the big event for Xbox, okay? It was for some other companies, but historically, E3 was much more of a press-related event because back then, or well before 2000 or 2009, we're talking back 2001, 2002, 2003, a lot of people weren't using websites to find out their gaming news. You were relying on magazines. You had to wait for IGN and these other guys to go out there and get the articles and play the games, and then weeks later, you'd find out about it. So XO was actually the big thing for Xbox. In 2001, the first XO was held, X01, and the basic idea was to hype up the release of the Xbox because it was in October 2001, so it was right before the original Xbox. They announced a new game called Project Ego, which later evolved into Fable. Other big games that they announced included Brute Force. Everyone remembers the hype behind that and how it died immediately after the game came out, right? They had a lot of other games they really showed off in depth that they had announced before, like Halo Combat Evolved, Bloodwake, Amped. Oh, God, I loved Amped. Project Gotham Racing, Fusion Frenzy, etc., etc., etc. And in the years following, XO was their big event. It was at XO2 that it was revealed Project Ego had become Fable. Project Gotham Racing 2 was announced. The fact that they had purchased Rare for $375 million, which was a huge shock to the industry. And by the way, that's something that Phil Spencer referenced when he was talking about XO on Inside Xbox recently, which we'll get to what that means later. And Halo 2, one of, if not the most famous games on the original Xbox. That was announced at XO2. And even in the years following that, games like Dead or Alive 4, Mass Effect, Alan Wake, Gears of War, a lot of big announcements and stuff, or if not the game announcements themselves, the big information came at XO. The fact that Halo Wars existed, that was announced at XO. BioShock, which was a 360 PS or /PC timed exclusive, that was announced at XO. Splinter Cell Conviction, which was an exclusive, that was announced at XO. Mass Effect, the GTA exclusive DLC, because there was actually a time Rockstar was in financial trouble. Hard for us to understand, I know, but it did happen. All that. So XO used to be their big thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. And then in years past, I would say about 2007, it started to decline. And then, actually, no, it was 2006, excuse me. 2006 was the last big one they held. And then they held some after that from 2006 to 2000. From 2007 to 2011, but they weren't really anything special. It really transferred over to E3. So there's a lot of history in this event. It meant a lot for the OG Xbox crowd. And that's why I think it speaks volumes that they're bringing this event back after all these years. It's been a long, long time. It's been 12 years since there was a legit full XO event.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans have been demanding this for a long time. I know I was particularly vocal, especially during 2017, which was, I would say, the low point of the Xbox generation. There was some gems in there. I will forever give Cuphead its credit.
Sure.
But during 2017, it was so dry. There was not a lot of games coming out. I'm speaking strictly on the Microsoft platform. I'm not speaking of games in general. There's tons of great games in 2017. But it was really dry, and you kind of sat there and you're like, well, what's going on? And it's always been this thing with Xbox, especially this generation, where I know it's a bit of a meme in the community, but this whole wait till E3 mentality it's terrible. Like Xbox has sometimes had some really good showings at Gamescom. This past Gamescom was a decent showing for them. The previous Gamescom to that was an absolute disaster. So it's good that they not only are they putting such a focus on their fan base, but it's also good to hear that they have enough content to deliver an event like this.
Right.
Because that's a serious step in the right direction. And by having this in November, it's what? E3's in June. So this is almost 6 months after E3.
Right, which effectively lets them spread out the information so that fans aren't kept waiting too long.
Exactly. And I think it's something, I don't know if I'm not going to say it's copied, but I think it's something they learned from PlayStation with the PSX formula. And
right.
And having Inside Xbox every month on top of this event, so you have Inside Xbox to cover small news, announcements, tidbits, and everything else. So if you're a serious Xbox fan, Inside Xbox covers you for a lot of that information. X018 will pull you in. I'm assuming at this point is going to be similar to, it's not going to be a mini E3, but it'll give you a broader spectrum and gives them a chance to announce bigger things, because Inside Xbox really isn't the platform for large announcements.
No. Inside Xbox is a recap for, and I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion at all, but it's a recap for the casual audience of what's happening that month. And occasionally some neat tidbits will coincide, like, hey, we haven't announced the games with gold yet, we'll announce them here. We haven't announced some enhanced Xbox 360 games, we'll announce them here. Those tidbits are neat, but they're not E3. They're not even Nintendo Directs. They're just designed to improve communication with the audience.
Exactly. And that was one of the biggest flaws that Xbox had from 2016, 2017 timeframe, is the communication was a little bit confusing at times. And I'm glad to see them listening to feedback. and adjusting things. So we're going to talk more about what we expect to see at X018. We want to talk more along the lines of what are some reasonable predictions. We'll kind of go back and forth on this one. So what's a reasonable prediction you have for X018?
Okay, so to keep things interesting here, how about we go one prediction after another until we reach the end of the show? Like, what would be the first thing we'd see, and then move from there to the end? Does that make sense? Alternating? Yep. I think we can do it that way. So I think a very reasonable kickoff, aside from a warm welcome speech from Phil Spencer, is something from Gears 5. Now, let me explain. They're holding XO in Mexico City, and Mexico and Latin America and South America in general, as a general rule, love Gears of War. Gears sales have always been disproportionately huge down there for a variety of different reasons. And so as a result, the fact that they're choosing to have this they're having XO in Mexico City, that speaks volumes to me. Gears 5 is coming next year. Almost certainly September or October next year. It'll be Microsoft's holiday game like Forza Horizon 4 is this year. That's what it's going to be next year. So we know the game is coming along well, doesn't have much more work needed to do. I think they're going to show some gameplay. I think that's the first thing we see is a new Gears 5 trailer and almost certainly new Gears 5 gameplay. That's the first thing we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And with how the Coalition can simply just absolutely turn out production value and how fast they blow my mind how fast they can develop a game and move. Just blows my mind. Absolutely amazing talent in that studio.
Fun fact, Rod Ferguson was actually brought in as a producer to help wrap up work on BioShock Infinite because of how well known he was in terms of his efficiency. So that man runs a tight ship. That's the reason right there.
Yeah. Got a tremendous amount of respect for Rod Ferguson. He does absolutely amazing what he's done with that franchise. And there's a certain amount of risks they're taking with Gears of War 5 that I'm really interested to see how they pay off. I really hope what they do, because that Gears of War 5 trailer is definitely coming. And I hope when they show off gameplay, they show off all the new things that you're going to see in Gears. Because the big thing that the Coalition said was when they released Gears of War 4, this is their Gears of War game. And then they wanted to try to play with the formula a bit after that.
Sure. They've talked at length about how, the comparison to Mad Max, about how just because you're playing as JD, it was actually Kate's story. And I love that analogy. I love Mad Max Fury Road. And the fact that, this game, they felt that they had to do a traditional game before they did any radical changes. So this is their moment. This is going to be their defining moment, and I think they can do it. But that's definitely going to be the first thing. What do you think a reasonable second thing is?
See, the thing is with Xbox, it's always hard to predict how they pace their shows. Because even with their E3 conference, this past E3, with how fast paced that felt, they banked Cyberpunk 2077 to the end, the end of the show.
Sure.
As the closeout. I want to say that you're going to have after something as big as Gears of War 5, they're going to wind it down. For a moment. I think maybe we're going to get an Ori and the Will of the Wisps more gameplay, and I'm going to say, not necessarily saying a release date, but certainly a more defined window.
Yeah, like instead of just 2019, hey, maybe or spring 2019, summer 2019, something like that. Which, for the record, I think it's anywhere from April to May myself. But we'll see. That could be we could totally be wrong about that. We'll have to see. But that makes sense. Or in the Will of the Wisp. I think as well, they're going to talk at length about the Microsoft initiative with Razer about mouse and keyboard on console. They're going to devote a lot of time to that. They're going to talk about how that's going to work, and they're going to talk about what games are coming over as a result of that.
I agree with that, because the thing is that explaining to a console user fan base how mouse and keyboard support is going to enhance the gaming experience without making it unbalanced, it's a tough sell. Mouse and keyboard support is a tough sell.
It is.
But I'm interested to see, because the peripherals are going to be on point, because it's an Xbox and Razer partnership, first of all, and say what you will about Microsoft's production and games and everything else, or if you don't like their consoles, their peripherals are solid. And Razer makes some of the best keyboards, mice, and headsets on the market within a reason. I'm not going to say an insanely reasonable price because they are expensive, but for what they are, they're very, very well made. So I'm interested to see what that partnership's going to bring. And what I'm most excited about is some of the games that we're going to see that could possibly come over from PC. What games do you think we'll see during this mouse and keyboard segment? We can cross off Warframe because that's the first game that's getting mouse and keyboard support.
Right. So it's difficult to say what games will get mouse and keyboard support. I honestly can't make that call. That there's too many wild factors there. I'd throw Overwatch out there as one that could. Overwatch definitely seems like it would benefit from it. I've never played Overwatch on PC, but I've heard it's a completely different game. It would be nice to get it for some of these single player games like Doom and Prey and Dishonored. Like that would be awesome. I don't see it happening, but we'll see. We'll see. In terms of games coming over, we kind of touched on that on Gaming Perspective and on Tech Podcast. So I think things like Frostpunk, maybe some of the Total War games, things like that are pretty reasonable for coming over. It makes sense. Games that require a mouse and keyboard. There's no way you can play it on a controller, and it's already saturated in the PC marketplace. They've already gotten all the sales they're going to get on PC, so why not port it over to console for Xbox, make a quick buck? Microsoft technically gets a third-party exclusive on console. Everyone's happy. That kind of little deal there. So I think that's going to take up a good bit of time as well.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, games like Frostpunk, I would be very surprised if we don't see Age of Empires Definitive Edition come across. And
absolutely.
And you're going to see Gears of War Tactics is going to be announced for Xbox as well. So that's going to take up I think that's going to be their middle portion. Now, the question I have for you is, where are they going to put Crackdown 3? Because at this point, if they do this event and we don't see Crackdown 3,
then lose all hope. If you somehow have not abandoned hope already, that is your signal to abandon ship. I'm sorry, but come on. Like really, there's no way. There is no way they can go without showing it at this event. So you're right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Crackdown 3 comes after the mouse and keyboard talk. And they do this is my mixed predictions with hopefulness. This is probably the most hopeful I'm going to get during our predictions here. Otherwise, I think we've kept it pretty grounded. I hope it's a multiplayer blowout and they show the destruction in action. I hope. I really, really hope, because frankly, anything short of that is going to be disappointing. But
yeah, see, I just think the Crackdown franchise was never meant to be this big of a deal.
And I think that's why it got delayed. I think it was, for all intents and purposes, supposed to come out in 2017, but all this additional polish and stuff that's happened is the natural result of, understandably, we understand why Fable Legends and Scalebound both never materialized. But the problem is, Fable Legends was supposed to come out, around 2017. Scalebound would have been coming out around this time, again, assuming things had gone well. We both know that they didn't. And so as a result, they're feeling that pressure that Crackdown 3 is the last of their 2014 announcements that has not been canceled or actually come out. And they want to make sure it delivers. So I get that. That's fine. But make sure it delivers, please.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing, is we talk about how, glum 2017 was for Xbox. If Scalebound had launched, Fable Legends had launched, Crackdown 3 had come out, it'd be a very different picture.
We'd be talking very differently.
Depending on the quality of those games.
Of course, and that's the other side of the shoe. We both know why some of those games didn't come out. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But, okay, so Crackdown 3, we remain hopeful. We're crossing our fingers. We're crossing our toes, praying there. We'll see what happens. I think then after that, we get a couple of tiny announcements. And I say tiny, I mean things that are really cool, like maybe Ashen finally gets a release date. Maybe Below finally gets a release date. Things like that, like rounding out the catalog. I expect one of those two to be shadow dropped in December and the other to be a January title.
I think just from what I've seen and what I've heard from people that went to conventions and whatnot this year, I really do think Ashen's going to drop in December.
I do too.
And I really think Below will drop January because Below was playable at PAX East.
Exactly. And
Ashen has been playable for almost a full year.
Exactly. And shout out to Jez Corden because he had an interview and he talked with some of the guys at Aurora 44 and they explained to him explicitly that it's not an issue of the game not being done. The game is done. It's an issue of we need to make sure we drop this game somewhere where it can survive. And that's totally fair. I totally get that. I do. I think even though Smash is huge, Smash is also practically the only game dropping in December. So a good December release date makes sense.
I think
especially for the fact that it's in Game Pass. That's going to make a difference for it as well.
I also think that Xbox and PlayStation shouldn't shy away just because Smash is coming out, because Nintendo's buying audience is it's not completely different, because there's a lot of people that own a PlayStation.
But it's not
Switch.
Exclusive. It's not going to hurt the other audiences.
Exactly. It's the same thing as like other games have been selling well, even though like when God of War dropped, there's still other games that did really well. When Spider-Man dropped, there were still other games that did really well. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, you're going to have a slightly decrease in people buying your game or maybe hearing about your game, but you shouldn't completely shy away from the whole month. Like the fact that there's basically a few Persona side games coming out and Smash, and that's pretty much it for December.
Exactly. So finally we move into the closure, I think.
The one of the small tidbit things I think we're going to see too, I think, and this is from E3 2017, I think we're going to finally see some more gameplay of The Last Night.
That would be awesome. I'm not so sure about that, but that would be awesome. I think, again, that's reasonable. We've kept everything pretty reasonable here because you'll notice nothing that we've talked about here is a new announcement. It's just an update on something that's already out there. And I think that's the important thing. This is going to be the state of Microsoft Studios type thing, not mini E3, like you said, in terms of new announcements. It's updated announcements. And that's cool. That's also exciting. That's really good stuff. But I think there will, moving into the final act of the conference, be one or two big announcements. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you have some interesting information that you got from some reliable people on Reset Era. So if you want to tackle into that.
Sure. So back in mid-August, Reset Era user Clobril mentioned that he had seen evidence, he had seen it with his own two eyes, of a letter of intent acquisition for Obsidian Entertainment to be acquired by Microsoft Studios. The thing is, he wasn't exactly sure about it because it was only signed by Obsidian employees, which comes across as Obsidian pitching themselves to Microsoft, which if you know anything about Obsidian's financials over the last couple of years, frankly, it makes perfect sense. And it's kind of surprising it's taken this long for them to pitch themselves to a big publisher. They've had some money issues. Clobril, just in case anyone doesn't know, is a very reliable Microsoft insider on Reset Era. He accurately predicted the entirety of their 2016 conference, and the fact that there was a new Santa Monica studio, and the fact that Microsoft was acquiring Playground Games. So he has an excellent track record. Near perfect. So I think Obsidian is a done deal at this point. I do. It just makes sense. Bloomberg actually has officially included in one of their financial reports about the company on their website. That's very reliable. They mentioned the rumors that were swirling. A couple of other people I've talked to have mentioned it. It seems like a done deal at this point. It makes sense. They provide a different kind of RPG, not like an action RPG like Horizon Zero Dawn or something like The Witcher, or what we think Playground Games is working on, but sort of an older style RPG. You know, those CRPGs like Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate. That kind of thing is what they're good at, and I think them doing that with Microsoft's resources, them making like a Dragon Age style game, or even like a Fallout New Vegas style game, that'd be pretty cool. It makes sense. They make sense for rounding out the portfolio.
Yeah, for sure. And like Obsidian's got a great track record. Unfortunately, they had to kickstart their past two games, which is unfortunate because I believe it was Pillars of Agony.
Pillars of Eternity.
Pillars of Eternity. I always get. I don't know why I always want to call it Pillars of Agony. I myself have not played it, but a good friend of mine's a huge fan of the series and will never stop telling me how great it is and how I should invest the amount of time it takes to beat a fully fleshed out Obsidian RPG, which is a lot of time. But I think Obsidian is a smart pick to round out Microsoft's portfolio. They need more than one RPG studio. And they've got the initiative, which is great. We don't know exactly what they're making for sure. Playground Games is most likely almost 98% making Fable. So if they have three studios cranking out high quality, big RPGs, then that's not a bad space to be. And if they make Obsidian make a game similar to like Divinity Original Sin 2 or things like that, play to Obsidian's strong points.
Right, exactly. Let them do what they're good at and round out your portfolio. Especially since, frankly, BioWare doesn't seem to be interested in making those kinds of games anymore. So, there's a hole to be filled there. There really is. I am dying for another Dragon Age style game. I am dying for a game to recapture the magic of Dragon Age Origins. Okay, I am. So if they can get close enough for me to compare it, if they can make a game that I throw in the same ballpark as Dragon Age Origins, I'll be over the moon. I'll be happy with them, dude. So it makes sense. That's the key thing about this. Microsoft isn't just going to buy anyone just because, oh, well, look, we've got money and we suddenly remembered how to spend it. So now we're going to buy this team. It doesn't work like that. It's about making sure that it's best for the developer and best for the publisher.
Yeah. And like Obsidian makes like Fallout New Vegas is one of my all-time favorite games in the Fallout series because it tried to capture the old school RPG elements from the original games that did not translate necessarily to Fallout 3 and tried to give your decisions more weight, which I liked. And it bugs me. I wish I had the time there's so many good RPGs out there, especially if you start looking into like the PC space. There's so many good RPGs. There's amazing JRPGs and all this depth, but on the console space, sometimes I like outside of JRPGs on the PS4, and so a good majority are coming to Xbox now. I feel like the Western RPG market is not dwindling, but there's a lot less people as a part of it. Like the only, like I can't even call it Western RPG that's come out in the past little while that's been anything impressive is Kingdom Come Deliverance.
We had Kingdom Come Deliverance, we had Witcher 3, and this is another topic I don't want us to get sidetracked on, but we're seeing genres blend. So we are seeing games with, RPG elements. Like God of War has RPG elements, even though it's not an RPG. But yes, the point is having a dedicated RPG studio for Microsoft would be awesome. Now, do we think there's anyone else that there would be in there? Or is it just Obsidian?
See, I saw that Reset Era thread you sent me where they were like predicting the three studios and whatnot, but I can't. The thing is there's not a lot of studios I can think of off the top of my head that makes sense for them to purchase, as well as aren't tied up with another publisher.
Right. Now, to be fair, We Happy Few was tied up in another publisher. Gearbox published that, and Microsoft was still able to navigate everything and buy compulsion games. So them being tied up with another publisher isn't necessarily a death sentence to the acquisition.
No. What I'm more talking about is like when people are throwing around, we'll use Creative Assembly for an example. That's a massive studio with a huge amount of manpower that's also owned by Sega and also is a huge breadwinner for Sega. So like that's not going to happen. I think we're going to see some small studio pickups.
Right. We could see, like, I know people have thrown the name Playful out there. They made Super Lucky's Tale. Okay, full disclosure, I really don't care. I cannot bring myself to care about that game. So
it's like 1,000 gamer score in 6 hours. Come on now.
In that case, well, I have to play it then. Geez, But I hate to sound so dismissive. I'm not trying to sound dismissive towards the studio. I'm just not a fan of the game. But something like that is reasonable. Maybe Studio MDHR. Maybe that's a little more. That's a little more risky, I think. That's a little more risky, but that type of studio, that type of team is the other kind. I think Obsidian is the biggest thing you'll see announced there in terms of acquisitions. Obsidian by far and large. Obsidian is not quite on the level of the Ninja Theory shock, but it would be pretty darn close. It would be pretty darn close to that, given the kind of reputation those guys have.
Yeah, for sure. And I think of any studio I can think of that deserves a strong financial backing and a secure publisher, it's Studio MDHR. Because people forget, Cuphead did phenomenal for the type of game it was. It's a boss rush game, essentially.
Essentially, yes.
Essentially, we'll take out the run and gun parts, but it's basically a boss rush game. And those kind of games don't sell really well. And Cuphead did amazing. And there was a lot of things that played into that. That game is probably the smoothest boss rush game. The art style's amazing. The enemy design's amazing. Just the vibe. I could listen to that soundtrack for days. Cuphead was very well done. And now we've got the DLC coming in 2019 as well.
Right. So Microsoft working on a deal there to keep those guys and gals financially secure for a long time, permanently acquiring them, letting them do their thing, round out the portfolio. It makes sense. But I think in terms of realism, for safety's sake, only expect Obsidian.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
And I just wanted to be noted on this show, as well as the gaming perspective, I've been screaming that they bought Obsidian from the start. So I want my credit. I want my cliff notes in the Wikipedia article.
Oh, Lord. Hey, if I could stealth edit without getting noticed, I probably would. But
yeah.
Okay, so there's one last thing, right, before we wrap up here. What do they close on? Acquisition like Obsidian is awesome, but it's not something you close on. Do they go for the throat and just tell us what we already know? And what they already know we know, that Playground Games is working on Fable.
Do you think, we talked about this pre-E3, pre you going to E3.
Right.
Do you think they could do a CGI trailer to introduce Fable? Because I don't think you just announce it.
No, you can't. No. You do not do the Metroid Prime 4 thing.
No. Don't. See, that's the thing is, if they do that, I will not shut up on social media about it for a long time.
No, but this game has been in development for long enough. Playground Games is expanding like wildfire. I can't even keep track of it. You and I have joked about that in our DMs. We can't keep track of how many positions they're opening and what they're doing there. So I think this is the time. Again, everyone knows. That's the thing. Just a 45-second trailer. Yep. In-engine footage. Doesn't even have to be actual gameplay. Just in-engine, 45 seconds. Dragons, knights, wizards, sorceresses, magic, monsters. Fable. That's all you got to do. Don't say anything else. Don't even say if it's coming to current-gen systems, although I do think it is. I think it and Halo Infinite are cross-gen games. But regardless, don't even say that if necessary. Unless you're absolutely sure. Just tease that. Close the show. Yeah. And I think if they do all that, dude, that people have no reason not to be happy.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is that it's about momentum. And I think to conclude, E3 was a huge proving point for Xbox. And I don't mean yes, they're still working on the first party productions.
And they're going to be for some time. It takes time to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, those things take time. There were some missteps. There was leadership changes. You should never start. If anyone works in any form of industry, if your whole upper management changes during a big contract flip, it's a nightmare. And when you're doing a generation flip with a management flip, you're in for some trouble along the way. And that definitely played into it. But I think they're setting themselves up for a brighter future. And by showing off so many things at E3 that they were very weak on, Japanese support, there's some big things coming for Xbox, and they're starting to get Phil's trip to Japan, as much of a meme as it became, it really is starting to show, because there's a lot of Xbox games, not Xbox games, there's a lot of what would be considered PS4 exclusive games from Japanese developers that weren't necessarily exclusives for financial reasons, but more because of convenience. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see those come across. Like, if people don't think that there's some money tossed around to bring Nier Automata to Xbox One, I think you'd be lying to yourself.
Yeah.
And just bringing a wider variety of games, whether they're third party or not, giving people more options and wider game base they can play, it's smart. And by building the momentum from E3, if they can continue to carry that to this event and then hype people up and get expectations set for E3 next year, it's a really, really smart move.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think we covered that pretty efficiently.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. So that's our breakdown of X018. So I hope you guys enjoyed the new series. Leave feedback in the comments. Tweet me feedback. If I follow you, you can DM me. If I don't follow you, you can't DM me. But yeah, give us feedback on the show, what you liked, what you didn't like. And thanks everyone that stopped by in the chat and checked it out. And shout out to all the people that come and check my content out after the live stream. And there's going to be a ton of more stuff coming to this channel in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that information as it becomes available. So we'll do outros here. Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Samuel Talbert. You can find me, writing editorials, reviews, news, opinion pieces on tickgamesnetwork.com and on the Inner Circle podcast when we hold it, and on the Gaming Perspective when we hold it.
Yeah, we might have a Gaming Perspective episode tomorrow. It's Canadian Thanksgiving up here, so I'm trying to sort out my family plans and whatnot. So that episode may have a swing date, depending. But I'll certainly, if you follow me on Twitter or you follow the official Gaming Perspective Twitter, we will keep you up to date on the Spider-Man spoiler cast, which is finally going to be coming to life. I was going to try to throw a Spider-Man pun in there, but the only one I could think of was like the Spider-Man spoiler cast swinging into action. And I just...
Please don't do that. I'm tired of reading reviews that have swinging in on it.
Hey, I feel attacked.
I didn't say it was you. I'm just saying. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Everyone have a great night, and thanks for checking out the breakdown. Keep your eyes peeled for the next episode.